Happy Christmas to each of you. Welcome to this Unitarian Universalist Church, which includes our congregation here in Tuscaloosa and our congregation in Birmingham and all of our folks online. To all who are here this morning, welcome home. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We are so delighted to celebrate Christmas with you today. We gather together on this Christmas Eve as fellow sojourners, looking for light, for hope, for peace, and for love. We gather as people from many backgrounds, many beliefs, many cultures, and many spiritual paths. But as we light this chalice, we gather as one body, looking to the Nativity for its message for all humanity. Its message that there is light, there is hope, there is peace, and there is love. Let us join together in singing Joy to the World, found in your insert. We're going to sing 2 verses. Please stand as you are willing and able. It's not turning green for me.
Just use the mic right there. Point it to you.
Is it already on? Our first reading today is from the Gospel according to Luke. In those days, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire should be enrolled in the tax lists. This first enrollment occurred when Quirinius governed Syria. Everyone went to their own cities to be enrolled. Since Joseph belonged to David's house and family line, he went up from the city of Nazareth in Galilee to David's city, called Bethlehem in Judea. He went to be enrolled together with Mary, who was promised to him in marriage and who was pregnant. While they were there, the time came for Mary to have her baby. She gave birth to her firstborn child, a son, wrapped him snugly, laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the guest room. Our second reading is from the Gospel according to Matthew. Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be pregnant from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to divorce her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Look, the young woman shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had given birth to a son, and he named him Jesus. Please stand in body or in spirit and join in our next hymn, It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. This is our Unitarian Universalist Christmas carol, for those of you that don't know. So we are singing all 4 verses. So let's join together. up there. You know, since Stark gave his special little sermonette a couple weeks ago, all I've heard from Ezio is, when is it my turn to have the mic? But I've said we don't have enough time in service for the length of sermon that Ezio would want to give. Okay, can you all scoot back just a little bit so I can see your faces? That's good, that's good, that's good. Hey, do you want to come sit up here by Dada? Or you can stand there, it's cool. Alright. Does anybody know what we're here to talk about today? Not a soul. Are we here to talk about Legos? No? Why are we here? Why do we have this cool thing in the room?
It's Christmas.
Because it's Christmas, right? And why do we celebrate Christmas? Because it's a holiday. Is it because of the presents?
Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
So when I woke up on the window, like I was going to the stairs and going down, I saw this thing that said Christmas. It sucks. And the Grinch wrote it, but it can't come off. I think it can come off, so he wrote everywhere and on the toilet, on the back.
Okay, we don't need to tell them.
On the bathroom.
So for those of you that don't know, Santa doesn't come to our house. The Grinch does.
Yeah, but he's.
And he came last night, and he stole all of our presents.
And also wrote on pictures.
He wrote on pictures, he put mustaches on people. It was just a lot of chaos. And so tonight, we're hoping that the Grinch brings our presents back.
Yeah,
But that's what happens at our house. But it's a very special thing that doesn't happen at other people's houses.
And the Christmas tree was actually knocked over.
The Christmas tree was knocked over. It was very sad. Okay. So it's not about presents. It's actually not even about the Grinch. This holiday is because a baby was born lots and lots of years ago. Do you know how hard it is for a baby to be born?
Yes.
Is it an easy thing? Do we have any testimonies that would like to give?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. But even before that baby was born, many, many years ago, there were lots of people who were hoping and thinking about that baby. They were hoping for that baby, but they didn't know what the baby would look like. They wondered, would the baby have a smile so warm that it could melt snow and ice? Would the baby have a voice so strong that it could shake mountains? Would the baby be courageous and comfort other people even when they were going through a rough time? Would the baby show the world so much love and peace that even people who were really, really grumpy like the Grinch would feel loved, right? So as they were hoping for this baby with all of these different skills, there was a baby that was born. And they really put a lot of hope into that baby. And his name was Jesus, okay? And they wrapped up his tiny body because it was so cold out, just like this itty bitty baby here. This is about the size of Jesus when we're talking about this story, right? Thank you for bringing your great illustration this morning.
And my mom knows that we have a baby, but two babies. One of them is Caroline and one of them is Nora.
Yeah, we have babies in our family too. So this baby Jesus, he was laid down in straw, okay? He did not have a nice bed like you all have. And his parents, they were really exhausted because they had just had a really long journey. And, you know, just the journey to this church was exhausting for this baby. Look, it's still sleeping. Babies cannot handle long journeys very well. So Jesus' parents were two of the people that had been hoping for a long time about this baby. And they were hoping all of these wonderful things about Jesus. They were hoping he would use his voice to help people, and that he would use his hands to help other people, and that he would be kind and love people. But Jesus wasn't the only baby that people have waited and wished for. People waited and wished for each of you. Your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles and your church friends, they were all hoping to meet each of you.
Even my uncles that were made in Alabama.
Yes. Even before you were born, there were people who were waiting and hoping to meet you. Is that hard to believe? Even before you got here?
Yep.
Parents, am I right? You were waiting to meet these babies, weren't you? Grandparents, were you waiting to meet those babies? Absolutely. Church friends, were you waiting to meet these babies? Yes. And they wondered, all of these people wondered, would you be kind? Would you be brave? Would you show other people love? Would you spread peace and joy? All of us hope that for you every day. And even though we wish and hope that you are going to turn out a certain way, you are the ultimate person that gets to decide whether you're going to be brave and kind and spread peace and joy and love. You can help ease the suffering of the world. You can help other people out, and you can be a light to the earth. You are going to speak out against all those things, right? You're going to speak up for other people, and you're going to show the world love. Do you think you can do that? Maybe? Yeah? All right. Well, think about it. But I know that you can, because all of us have looked forward to your births, and all of us look forward to seeing what you do with your lives. So we're going to cheer you on, okay? Wonderful. Thank you for being a part of this story. You can go back and sit with your parents now, okay? Let us join together in singing our next hymn, Sing We Now of Christmas, but we are only going to sing the first 3 verses. The last 2 verses were accidentally put on here, but those are for the kings, and the kings aren't here yet. So just the first 3 verses. Thank you. Maybe under the direction of Anna. Our church is supported by those who call their church home and by those who support the efforts of our church to change the world for the better. Tonight, our special offering funds the minister's discretionary fund, a descendant of the historic Parsons purse, which are funds donated to the cleric to be used for the good of others in the congregation or the community at large. Examples this past year including helping with utility bills, daycare expenses, grocery, clothing, medical expenses, and helping folks through rough life transitions. In the spirit of this blessed season, we hope you will be generous to help others. Thank you for your generous support of our church. May we give in love and in hope. Let us join our hearts and minds together in the spirit of meditation and prayer. May these moments of quiet lead us to the heart of the season, which is peace. May we breathe deeply of peace in this quiet place, relax into its warmth, know that we are safe here, and let us open our hearts to this morning's story. Like the wandering couple, may we find that our greatest trials issue forth from our greatest joys. Like the harried innkeeper, may we find ways to be of help to others. Like the lumbering beasts, may we be silent witnesses to the unfathomable glory of life. Like the shepherds on the hill, may we know that we never need to be afraid. Like the journeying wise people, may we always have the courage to follow our stars. And like the angels, may we cry peace to a troubled world. Holy One, to these prayers for our own transformation, we add our prayers for all of those who suffer and grieve today. May they find comfort. And we add our prayers for all of those involved in war. May they be safe. And may this season of peace and goodwill nudge our world toward its ideals. For then will Christmas truly dawn. Let us take a moment of silence together. Amen and blessed be. Let us do our next hymn seated as our meditation hymn. It is I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day.
Would you like me to play through this one time so they hear it? It's not the version that they're all used to.
Yes. So Ken will play through the song one time and then we will join them together. reading this morning is from one of my colleagues and friends, the Reverend Dan Schatz. He writes a Christmas poem each year, and each year it just rocks my soul, so I have to share it with you. So here is today's reading. Angels sang of peace. We heard them out above the fields, first whispers, then a rising throng, singing, shouting, thrilling, a promise, a prayer, a plea. Peace. On earth, peace. So we followed a star to an infant child, all wrapped in stable rags, shared the news angels had brought us, and went upon our way. But in my heart, though years have gone, choirs never stilled. Angels sang of peace, a promise, a prayer, a plea. On earth, peace. Courtney made some busy bags to bring to Tuscaloosa, so feel free to go get one. I think all the kids have one at this point. They're making lots of fun things, So Christmas is one of those times where we intentionally talk about Jesus. We do so because as a theologically diverse congregation, we have people who still very much identify with the Jesus story, and we certainly don't want to leave them out on Christmas Eve itself. So I invite you to think about what one word describing Jesus inspires or empowers you. For me, the word that has been meaningful to late is that Jesus very much embodied peace. There are lots of other words that describe Jesus, but I think that is one of them. This season of darkness, we are reminded of that miracle birth so many centuries ago. One still celebrated all over the world on this magical day, lit by the power of a single star. The contents of that cradle have forever shaped our cultures, our values, and the ways in which we radically love and include other people. But that night, in those first hours of his birth, Jesus had all the needs of other babies, despite centuries of trying to erase that. I think Jesus very much needed to be fed, and needed to be cradled, and needed to be cared for by the rest of his community. His parents were no doubt exhausted, no matter what framework or position or city you put them in. It's an exhausting time for those of you who have been there. And he probably fussed, because babies do that, even, ones that we attribute later to be different. But his community rallied around his family. No matter how we look at this story, his parents would not have been alone in a stable with a bunch of animals that night. There was a midwife, because Joseph was not going to help with the birth. Okay, there were other people around. There was the innkeeper and the innkeeper's wife. And there were likely, if we look at historically, there were likely lots of Joseph's family around to help Mary out. Those community are the people who helped care for that baby, who helped care for Mary and help her recover, who helped entertain the father, or whatever it is fathers are doing during that time. I don't know. Maybe some of you can speak to that. But they were all helping to foster that peace in the stable that night. That holy night forever shaped our views on peace, reminding us that if we come together in love, we too can make peace on earth. The stories of the birth of Jesus written in Matthew and Luke were written decades after Jesus' birth. They were never intended to be historical accounts of that night. Typical for their time, the authors of these two manuscripts were writing with a purpose. They were trying to explain Jesus' significance to their separate audiences. Luke, as a Gentile, was trying to depict Jesus as a prophet of the people, and thus he sent shepherds to welcome Jesus' humble beginnings. Matthew, as a Jewish author, wrote his birth narrative to illustrate what he was hoping to portray, which is that Jesus was the King of the Jews. So Jesus in Matthew's narrative received gifts from astrologers, he showcased Jewish values, and he fulfilled Jewish prophecies in the book of Matthew. One of the Jewish prophecies that is frequently mentioned is from the prophet Isaiah chapter 9. It says this: "A child has been born for us. We have been given a son who will be our ruler. His names will be Wonderful Advisor and Mighty God, Eternal Father and Prince of Peace. His power will never end. His peace will last forever." Now, do I think that prophecies from Jewish prophets refer to Jesus? No. Jewish prophecies were searching for heroes, for liberators, for leaders to save them from oppression and annihilation. They were prophesying for the Messiah, right? And for us to go back and look with 2020 hindsight and say, oh, well, they were talking about Jesus, that's not how prophecies work. But Jesus, as a young Jewish man, was very much versed in the prophecies of his people. While I doubt he was sitting there trying to make himself fulfillment of the prophecy, but he no doubt understood the values that are inherent in those prophecies. He understood that the path of liberation and justice could be attained with nonviolence. In honor of the life of Jesus, the Christmas season frequently uplifts the notion of peace as our ideal. Peace is woven throughout our hymns and our traditions this season. Many of those hymns we have sung together today. How many times can we say the word peace in our hymns? We have certainly attempted so this morning. So in both the Hebrew and Christian scriptures, peace is lauded as the ideal form of human interaction. Peace within ourselves, peace between others, and an absence of war and enemies. There are many different ways that peace is talked about. To be peaceful is to practice nonviolence, but also to inquire about the well-being of others in society. In the books of the prophets, peace is an ethical standard, and God is credited for destroying the weapons of Jewish people and their enemies alike. God is not a fan of weapons. Matthew and Luke present a militantly nonviolent and unarmed Jesus who teaches us to love our enemies. And in the first 3 centuries of Christianity, Christians were not permitted to kill others even while serving in the military, at least for the first 3 centuries. Then a Roman emperor named Constantine converted to Christianity in 312. He believed he was given a mission from Jesus himself, who provided him a Christian symbol and said, "In hoc signo vince," or translated to current-day English, "In this sign, conquer." Constantine forcibly converted all of his troops and waged war with his Christian army. By the 11th century, Christian soldiers were marching on Jerusalem solely on the fact that Muslims currently lived there. Judaism and Islam are no strangers to violence either. The Hebrew scriptures are full of references to battles long ago, both defensive and offensive, like the Battle of Jericho, and as we discussed a couple weeks ago, the Maccabees. And while our world unfortunately makes easy parallels between violence and Islam due to modern events, like all of these religious traditions, Islam's sacred texts are filled just as much with peace and love of neighbor as the others are. Most religions have some sort of extremists, including Unitarian Universalists. What we don't have in Unitarian Universalism is a history of initiating violence as a group. We have been, from the very beginning, peacemakers. We have our share of martyrs, including ones in recent history like Reverend James Reeb and Viola Liozzo, who were killed during the Civil Rights Movement in Selma. It's written right there in our principles, number 6, that we promote a goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. In our current form, we are so conflict aware and sometimes avoidant that we try in our church to settle church conflicts with peaceful discussion and reconciliation. That's our goal anyway. We are countercultural in our approach to conflict. Universalists were so nonviolent that they could not even imagine a hell. And Unitarians were so nonviolent that they struggled to see the crucifixion as anything but government-sponsored violence. However, Unitarians and Universalists have realized throughout time that sometimes violence is the only path to liberation and eventual peace. Unitarians and Universalists supported World War I. They financed John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, hoping to abolish slavery. And we have UUs who serve in our military today. We are not a pacifist faith. That would create a dogma among us, and we don't require you to believe anything or everything or one thing to be a part of this community. And yet, we hope to be promoters of peace. UU minister Reverend John Behrens said this: Unitarian Universalism can be a healing presence in society. We are not a peace church. We are not a war church. We are a religious community of both pacifists and pragmatists, taking different spiritual paths toward a common goal, a world of greater justice and peace. Unitarian Universalists are frequently the defenders of all people living under oppression. We as a collective have been there, protesting and chanting during sit-ins and sermons, writing letters to legislators and editors, demanding and insisting upon liberation. When we as a collective of Unitarian Universalists say, enough, we mean it. We strive for peace, and much of what we owe to peace is to this baby that we are celebrating today. Jesus, the teacher of Nazareth, even if his relationship to peace is a bit complicated. Now, surprisingly, not everyone agrees whether Jesus was a pacifist. Does anyone find that hard to believe? So in preparation for this sermon, which I intentionally thought weeks ago would be an easy home run about Jesus, the great purveyor of peace, I met with two of my Christian clergy friends, and they disagreed with me about whether Jesus was a pacifist. One of them said that Jesus overturned tables, used strong language, and in a couple instances encouraged the use of swords. Well, my other colleague, Reverend J. Gregory Clark, who's a hub organizer for Faith in Action, some of you have heard about that, he said that these verses claiming to show a violent Jesus emphasize the polarizing nature of the gospel, suggesting that the truth can indeed divide families as often as it brings them together, and that even those under the same roof sharing similar life experience can be split on what they believe. Does this sound familiar to any of the Christmas dinners y'all are about to have? Anyone? Yeah. Many of us have had this experience with our families, but we have great practice being a part of this community where we intentionally do not agree on things of theological matters. We strive for theological diversity in this space. Jesus was a personal inspiration to me this year. In November, as some of you all know, I was in the middle of some awkward conversations about the conflict in the Middle East. I had publicly and controversially supported a call for ceasefire and peace, actions that align with my religious principles. And this offended some people. My actions invited a lot of comments. I was told that if I had been born 70 years earlier, I would have been a hippie. Any hippies in the room? Yeah, wasn't too worried about that. I was told that no one called for peace when the United States was attacked on September 11th, 2001. We certainly did. I remember gathering in a march with thousands of others in Oklahoma City, asking our government why they were attacking another country, especially one that had nothing to do with the attack. How many of you have been a part of a peaceful protest in response to violence? For a long time, I tried to rationalize war, especially this one, that we have live footage all over social media and very striking images. I wanted to put this current war in the Middle East alongside other wars throughout history, from revolutions that were overthrowing oppression to people defending themselves from attack. I tried to rationalize all the horrible things that one set of humans was doing to another, and vice versa. It was a tough realization to accept that none of us would be where we are today without both oppressive and revolutionary forms of violence. I am not so naive to believe that peace is practical at this stage in the conflict in the Middle East. Both sides have been killing each other for decades. There has never been a true ceasefire. But what I do believe, what I believe Jesus and our Unitarian Universalist tradition call us to believe, is that peace should always be the aspiration. For all of us around the world to live in safety, without fear of domestic or international terrorism, should be a worthwhile aim. We should always hope for more peace. Peace is not a threat or an ultimatum. Peace is an ideal and a hope for a better tomorrow. Peace should always be an option. And preaching peace isn't always a popular position. We are wired as humans to protect and defend those we love. And most of our peaceful prophets have been assassinated because nonviolent protest and liberation is seen as countercultural. Martin Luther King taught that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. And sometimes these calls for peace come from unexpected places, like heavy metal musicians. As Corey Taylor, the lead vocalist for the band Slipknot, said recently, has anyone heard of Slipknot? Wow, I'm impressed. Corey said, "Look, there's a very clear list of things that you should be offended by. Anything racist or anything that has to do with trying to kill people. Everything else is open to interpretation, and it all depends on where you grew up, who you grew up with, and what you think in your own head." And yes, I did have to censor that a little bit for the children in the room. But I think it was a good sentiment nonetheless. We call for peace not because it is easy or popular or even rational. Deep within our hearts, we recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. Also, in the words of Martin Luther King, the ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, violence multiplies it. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I invite you today, as you go forth into your holiday festivities and in the week to come, what is your relationship to peace? I've shared what I think Jesus' is. I've shared some aspects of our Unitarian Universalist tradition and the voices of many others. But today I ask you, what is your relationship to peace? May you consider your relationship to peace and how you hold that belief while affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. May we remember this holy night what that baby taught us, hoping for peace in our community and around the world. To kindness and peace, the things we need most. Amen. And this time we are going to light our candles together. remember to put the unlit candle tipped. The lit candle stays upright. I want to help you spread the light. No. So you just hold yours upright and let other people light theirs.
Come on.
Deb, would you like to get the lights? Let us join together in singing Silent Night. Keep your candles lit as I offer the benediction. Make sure everyone online can hear us. Our benediction is from the words of Reverend Howard Thurman. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music in the heart. It's been a joy celebrating with you this morning. Go in peace.
Amen.